August 2017, Grays Harbor County, Washington. Oakley Carlson is 7 months old when she's placed in foster care with Eric and Jamie Jo Hiles. Eric and Jamie Jo are high school sweethearts who now teach at the same school where they fell in love.
One of my former students texted me and she said that, hey, I know that you and your husband have struggled with infertility and you really want a baby, and my hairdresser's granddaughter needs a home and she'll probably be up for adoption if you're interested in fostering her. I looked at Eric and I just said, I just feel really right about this. And he said, okay, let's do it.
As she grew up, she just loved to make people smile and laugh. She would just do funny things and just be silly. And it always made us chuckle.
Thank you. She could tell that I was having like a day or that I was sad about something. You know, she was the first one like to be a little empath and rub her little hand on my shoulder and say, it's okay, mama, like everything's okay.
She loved to dance. We had her in a dance class.
She would go to my dance team practices and she would do the moves that the girls would do.
Mom, I'm reading to you.
You are reading to me.
Okay.
Oakley loved reading stories. She can memorize books very well. It was not uncommon to read 3, 4, or 5 books before bedtime.
She was just an all-around just pleasant kid and funny and jovial.
Don't smile.
July 2019, Jamie Jo and Eric learn that the state of Washington now plans to return Oakley to her birth parents, Andrew Carlson and Jordan Bowers. The state also intends to reunite Oakley's 2 older siblings with Andrew and Jordan.
We tried to be open with Oakley and letting her know that like we were not her biological parents. Like we would always say that she didn't come from Jamie's tummy, she came from her heart.
Andrew and Jordan grew up in Grays Harbor County and have lived here pretty much their entire lives. Andrew was a police officer with the Aberdeen Police Department for a couple years. He was later terminated for dishonesty.
When she was first placed with us, we know it was because Oakley's older sister has a medical condition and that the parents were not providing the care necessary for her. And then we also heard there was drugs involved.
In the fall of 2019, Oakley visits more frequently with her biological parents. A few weeks later, Jamie Jo and Eric are told that Oakley will be returned to Andrew and Jordan in January of 2020. The state then moves this date up to November 29th, 2019, the day after Thanksgiving.
She literally spent the night 3 times at her parents' house before she went back permanently.
I feel everything was incredibly rushed.
Her last day with us was a Friday, and the driver came and picked her up at 10 a.m. We knew it was final, and we knew that we wouldn't get to talk to her after she returned to her biological parents.
We gave her a big hug. We put her in the car. We buckled her in, gave her another hug and kiss goodbye.
There's this really great show called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and there's a really great lesson where they sing a song about grown-ups coming back. She looked at me and she told me that it's okay, grown-ups come back, and she tried to console me.
Later that day, we were walking upstairs past her bedroom, and I just closed the door, and we closed that door for 6-8 months.
That's hard to even explain to somebody because it really did feel like a death.
Nearly 2 years later, on November 6th, 2021, there's a fire at Andrew and Jordan's home in Oakville, Washington.
The fire was in the 2nd story, and it was significant damage. Andrew called to report the fire. He said he was just calling to let them know, but did not need any fire response at the time as the fire had already been put out hours before. He had said that his daughter had started the fire on the couch with a lighter.
Jamie Jo and Eric learn about the fire when a friend shares a screenshot of the GoFundMe page that had been set up for Andrew and Jordan.
In the GoFundMe said the fire was started by their 4-year-old daughter. That would have been the age that Oakley was at the time. If they were unsupervised for long enough to start a fire that got out of control, like how long were they left unsupervised on a regular basis?
A 4-year-old just doesn't light a lighter. Like, I'm 35 and I can barely strike a lighter.
Worried that the family of 6 is living in a fire-damaged house, Jamie Jo and 2 of her friends contact the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to share their concerns.
It wasn't just, oh, there was a fire. It was, why are they still living in that? You're breathing in those fumes. You're living in a place that you don't know the structural integrity. Is it going to collapse on them?
As far as we could tell, there was nothing done with that. We were never heard back.
On November 10th, Oakville Elementary School Principal Jessica Swift drops off donated supplies to Andrew and Jordan's house.
Jordan answered the door, and 2 of their children were inside the door downstairs. I looked around and I didn't see Oakley, so I was like, where's Oakley? Because I kind of expected her to run out. Jordan told me that Oakley was in timeout in her room because she was being naughty and I wouldn't want to see her anyways.
Miss Swift returns to their house 2 weeks later and sees Oakley's 3 siblings, but again, not Oakley.
I mentioned it to my coworker and she was like, yeah, this is getting weird. And she was actually going out to the house the next day to drop off a meal that had been donated to them. And I was like, you gotta get eyes on Oakley. She goes out the next day and immediately calls me after and says, I saw all the other kids and I didn't see Oakley.
December 5th, 2021. In the morning, Miss Swift contacts a detective from Grays Harbor Sheriff's Office to request a welfare check on Oakley. At the time, Oakley's birth parents, Andrew Carlson and Jordan Bowers, are staying in a motel in the nearby town of Tumwater.
Since the initial location that she wanted checked was not in our county, we coordinated with the Tumwater Police Department and gave her instructions on how to report to them.
Tumwater police conduct the welfare check at the motel the next day, which happens to be Oakley's 5th birthday. There is no sign of Oakley.
Andrew and Jordan each advised that the other had taken Oakley to Andrew's parents' house. Tumwater Police Department tried to confirm that, but Andrew said he did not know the address and phone number of his parents. Turns out they're neighbors. They live kind of right next to each other.
Investigators determined that the last time Andrew's parents saw Oakley was December 25th, 2020, almost a year earlier. Jordan and Andrew continue to say they last saw Oakley on November 30th, 2021. But investigators discover that the last verified sighting was much earlier in the year.
We established a February 10th. So now we're looking at between February 10th and November 30th that we don't have anyone outside the mother and father that has had any interaction with Oakley.
A social worker from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families contacts Oakley's former foster mom, Jamie Jo, that day.
I was in a meeting with my principal and I just burst into tears. I explained I'm crying because I had a foster daughter and today's her birthday and I just miss her so much. I noticed that I'd gotten a couple phone calls. I listened to the voicemails and one voicemail was from Washington State DCYF. They were like, hey, can you take Oakley and when we find her, and can you take her little brother as an emergency placement foster care? And I ran to my husband because his classroom was right next door to mine and I said, you're never gonna believe this. My students were all out in the room cheering because they all knew Oakley and it was just very exciting.
The feeling we got was that one of the parents, Jordan or Andrew or somebody else, just had Oakley and then the authorities just weren't able to locate her yet.
Later that day, Andrew and Jordan are arrested.
Based on what we discovered at the scene, interviews, along with the complete absence of life of Oakley on the property, the time frame and that she'd been gone, I made the decision to request charges of manslaughter for both of them and ask that they be held on those charges.
The hold on these charges lasts 72 hours.
Jamie got a phone call from a friend, said, "Did you hear that Jordan and Andrew are being held on manslaughter charges?" It was that moment that we realized how serious of a situation this actually was.
Well, what do you mean manslaughter charges? And then when I did talk to the detective, and he's like, it's a holding procedure, but I do not believe that she is alive.